So my name is Gulu. If we haven't met, uh, delighted to be here. Uh, Beautiful Sunday morning. Our agenda for today, we'll do some meditation, give or take a half hour. I'll provide some guidance in the beginning and trail off for some silence. And then I wanted to share some reflections about wise effort. That's my subject for today, and then we'll have a chance for some conversation. And so many ways the Buddha talked about wise effort. Uh, and maybe the one I'll just mention before we meditate is um, something like the middle way or a sweet spot. Not too tight, not too loose. We, we could sit here and we could be completely relaxed and the mind could just be wandering all over the place. Might call that too loose. Or we could be sitting here with a sort of like, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to focus and then I keep the mind steady, which you might say too tight. That second way of practicing, well, first it doesn't really work that well, but it also just creates more tension, more agitation, which is counter to the whole project. So there can be an ongoing investigation. How much effort am I exerting? Um, And if I say, listen to the next word that I'm going to say, and then I say purple elephants, how much effort did it take you to receive those words? Like, I mean, if you can hear, almost no effort at all. Like, it just those words just appear in consciousness. So when we practice focusing the attention on the sensations of the body breathing, those sensations just arrive. We don't have to look for them, try to find them. It's just a sort of natural process. And then the other part of that is where are we applying effort? So we could apply effort to keep the mind steady. This actually turns out to be way more fruitful to apply effort when we notice that the mind has wandered. In the moment that we notice that we're lost in thought, it's a very powerful moment. The moment that we notice that we're lost in thought, we're no longer lost. It's that moment is actually like an awakening and a moment many of us use to self-flagellate. Oh, I'm not doing it. Mine's so busy and um, is actually we could change our relationship to that moment. That moment is an awakening. And in that moment, we have incredible opportunity to begin again. And that's where the sort of like, when we talk about ardency or like uh, determination, I think that's a really good place for termination. There's some seductive thought. I'm planning something that I'm doing, and then I notice that I'm planning the willingness to let go of the enticing thought, or let me just finish this. I'll figure it out, and I can come back to meditation. That we can just practice letting go and beginning again. So find a way to be as comfortable as you can. Your seat, comfort's very conducive to settling the mind. And maybe beginning by taking a few intentionally deeper breaths. And on the exhale, just softening. Each exhale can be just a kind of softening, arriving. I often think about down and back. So down, like the sense of the energy moving more fully into the body, not just head centric. Maybe some way in which the center of being, center of gravity of our being is lower in the physical body. and slightly back, literally or metaphorically, as an antidote to the doingness of life, which we're often leaning forward. Oh, down and back can mean that the shoulders come backward and downward, even a fraction of an inch. And just taking a few moments to invite a softening in any part of the body where that feels helpful. And opening the awareness to connect with whatever sensations are most prominent. It might be temperature, pressure, vibration, pulsation, whatever it might be. Just receiving and noticing the effortlessness of receiving. You might notice that some sensations have a kind of quality of being pleasant, some sensations unpleasant, some sensations neither. And maybe there's an overall feeling tone, an overall Vedana of pleasant, unpleasant, or neither. And then noticing how the mind is meeting this moment. Is there resistance? Maybe the mind is uh, tuned out, or the sense of leaning in, needing something, moving toward something. Or maybe the mind is just equanimous. It's fine, nothing to fix. And then inviting the attention to rest on the feeling of the breath moving in and out of the body. Kind of gathering the attention away from the complexity of life into this simplicity of breathing away, breathing in, aware of the in-breath, breathing out, aware of the out-breath, and everything else more or less fades into the background. And you might connect with the felt sense of breathing through the in the belly, expanding and contracting. Or maybe it's the rise and fall of the chest. Or maybe air at the nose, the upper lip. Or some sense of the whole body breathing, tracking the breath as it moves through various parts of the body. Oh, every time you notice that the attention has wandered from the breath, just begin again. This beginning again, again, and again is the heart of the meditative practice. And keeping it real simple, breathing in, knowing, feeling, sensing the in-breath, breathing out, knowing, feeling, sensing the out-breath. Oh, just letting the attention rest on the feeling of the breath moving in and out of the body. And keeping it real simple. Aware of the in-breath, aware of the out-breath, everything else just kind of fades into the background. Notice right now, is there any sense of any efforting? And if so, can you soften? There's nothing you have to do and nowhere you have to go. Nothing to get or get rid of. Just a steady, gentle effort. might take a moment to just check in with the body again, see if any tension has crept into the practice. And as we did at the beginning, just inviting a softening. Much easier for the mind to relax when the body is relaxed. And then as you begin again, finding the sweet spot, not too much effort, not too little effort. So, inviting you to bring someone or something to mind that you're grateful for. If it's a person or a living being, you might feel into the felt sense of being in their presence. And then connecting with gratitude as a feeling in the body, noticing where gratitude resides. Does it have a shape or size? Is it static or dynamic? The feeling tone, usually quite pleasant. And maybe letting the inner smile of gratitude creep outward into even the slightest outward expression, the half smile of the Buddha. And then inviting you to receive the sound of the bell. Mm, Thank you for your practice. And move around any way that's supportive. Had a big showing online this week. So, as I was saying, I wanted to talk about energy or effort. Um, the ancient word that the Buddha used is viriya. And this word viriya is etymologically related to the word virile. So it has this connotation of a kind of potency or kind of um, sometimes the word vira actually means hero. So sometimes it's kind of like a heroic effort or can be courageous effort. It's actually, to the uninitiated, looks like we're just sitting here doing nothing, but often takes courage actually to face what's lurking beneath the we sometimes call the orphans of the heart that begin to appear when we practice the undigested experiences of life. Um, and it's translated as energy, which is more that sense of it's a vitality or the ability to make things happen. Even on some level, just energy, the way we talk about it, like have a lot of energy or I'm really tired. Uh, and then it's also translated as effort, which is like the way we take our vitality and our energy and we make something happen. We do something with that energy. This appears on many of the famous lists of the Buddha. It's a sort of a vital consideration and practice. And the first, uh, or one of the ways this talked about is what I said at the beginning of the session is that it's sweet spot. There's a sweet spot between, effort that becomes unproductive and effort that is in the middle way. And this idea of the middle way comes from the Buddha's experience um, as a practitioner. He left his home of luxury to become a wandering mendicant. Um, it's said he left on the night of the birth of his son. So many people question his parenting decisions. Uh, but set out on this quest, he saw the nature of this life, that we're subject to old age, sickness, and death, and ultimate separation from everything that we hold dear, and sort of asked the question, like, how does one live well in a realm that's characterized by these challenges? Good things come, but they don't last. We're subject to all kinds of things we don't want. And so he learned meditation from the masters of that time, these like deep states of absorption that go by names of nothingness or n per neither perception nor non-perception, um, which at the time, by his contemporaries, were believed to be sort of the fruition of the meditative path. You could have these altered experiences that are characterized by, rapture, very pleasant feeling in the body, mind that's totally balanced and equanimous. The niggling hindrances of life are in abeyance. Um, so he learned these and mastered these from two different teachers. Teachers wanted him to sort of take over and lead to that um, group. And in each case, he said, the problem with this is that it's great when you're in the state, but as soon as you leave the state, you're back to, kind of where you started. So he kept searching, and as was the custom in that time, practiced in still a custom somewhat, practiced in a very uh, renunciate, highly ascetic way. Um, my mother was from the Himalayas, so when I would go to visit her, we would see these, we call them sadhus, like men that were just practicing. And one of the things they would do is they would take very awkward poses. They'd sit on beds of nails. And there's one guy I remember, I was 7 years old, and I actually saw him. He's sort of legendary, that had decided to put his hand like this in this position and just never moved it. So it was like at some sort of point, I'm sure he couldn't move it. His arm was just locked in this sort of bizarre position. And there was some belief that in essence, you'd conquer the body, and then that would lead to some kind of spiritual awakening. So the Buddha, it's described that he would take just a morsel of food a day, like a few grains of rice a day as his sustenance, or at one point he thought breathing was kind of overindulgent, so he just took as little breath as he could. And he was basically on the verge of death. You see these statues that I have one at Spirit Rock of the emaciated Buddha, where he's just basically a skeleton. And he described that the belly of his skin stuck to his spine, and that his eyes were sunken and gaunt. And if he scratched his head, the hair would fall out at the root. If he stood up, he'd fall over on his face. So it's like very dire circumstance that he was in. And I find this very inspiring. Some of you know my career has been as a corporate real estate attorney, and I find this highly relatable in terms of like professional burnout. The Buddha said on, you could say his profession or his chosen way to spend in time was in the pursuit of awakening, but he took it too far. Um, I think there's a really powerful, and then this idea of the middle way became a kind of through line of the teachings, um, to find in everything we do the sweet spot between something that's sort of overindulgent and something that is uh, something just like enough. You know, it's an interesting that is an interesting contemplation for those of us that, for us as people who live in a um, highly materialistic acquisitional culture. So this is something I think a lot about, in terms of like um, this energy that we have as a kind of resource and how do we spend it wisely and efficiently. And one thing that kind of dovetail with the practice in general is that, if we are practicing to free ourselves from reactivity, anytime there's reactivity, it takes more energy. Yeah. I think Shinzen Young describes it, it's like reactivity is like friction in a mechanical system. Like if we have a mechanical system of gears and pulleys or whatever, you want it to be as lubricated, as friction free as possible. So um, just this practice that we do to meditate, to allow the body to come into balance. And then when we have more balance, to pay attention to the places where we get caught, um, frees a tremendous amount of energy. Mm. I I have a basically what you would say aversive temperament. Uh, so the negative part of that is like sort of quick to anger and judgment and like sort of like seeing the problems. Um, these three temperaments that are described in the uh, Buddhist commentaries. So there's the greedy type, the aversive type, and the deluded type. Uh, you know, nods to these so-called poisons that of greed, hatred, and delusion that kind of are the source of suffering in general. You can see it in the world, how greed, these energies of greed, hatred, and delusion are um, causing humanity so many problems. And so there's a microcosm of this that's happening in each of us. But these temperaments are described as, so the greedy person walks into a room and they see the beautiful piece of art and they really appreciate it. And they think, oh, that would look great in my house. And they know exactly where it would go, or that would make a great gift for someone. And they know exactly um, this is the person that you ask for recommendations for anything, restaurants, vacations. They know all the finer things in life. And the flip side of that is that they can, like never have, sometimes it's never enough. I want more things, more experiences, more stuff, more whatever. Then there's the aversive temperament. So the aversive temperament person walks into the room, they see the work of art, but they see that it's crooked on the wall, or that it would have gone better over there because of the lighting. Yeah. And but these people are also great problem solvers, great truth tellers. Um, when the habit of complaint drops away, there can be clarity of the path. And then there's the deluded type. The deluded type doesn't make it to the room. They're just wandering around in the halls. And these people have tremendous capacity for equanimity. They uh, friendliness and equanimity. So it's an interesting investigation to notice what your temperament might be. Sometimes we have combinations. I call myself an aversive, greedy type. So, forgot where I was going with that. So much for clarity of thought. Yeah, where's the fruit? Yeah, so the Buddha was starving. Yeah, so the aversive temperament Well, I think it's just really good to investigate your temperament because your temperament is sort of illuminates the patterns that you really get stuck in. And one of the traits of the aversive type is like overachievement. So this is why I find this story so relatable because when I became a lawyer, it was just like I put everything into that basket and then experienced. That's actually why I'm sitting in front of you today because I experienced so much distress from the toll that that took on my physical body and my emotional state that I found a meditation practice. It was the thing that like kind of saved me in some way. So this is one very important way that effort is talked about. In anything we do, finding the sweet spot of effort, where it's like, and then how we're applying the effort. An example of meditation. Uh, more effort to beginning again than trying to stay. And there's some version of that in almost anything we do. Um, when I first started working as a lawyer, I spent a lot of effort wishing that it was different than it actually was. Like hours and hours of effort, like just trying to will something into being different. And then I realized like this is not fruitful effort. Um, Another way that I like to think about effort is what does it take to initiate effort? So in any kind of spiritual practice, we have to do something. You learn to meditate. You come to a Dhamma talk on a Sunday morning. You hopefully find some initiation effort to initiate a regular practice. Maybe it starts with a regular daily practice of sitting for some amount of time, and then maybe even transforms into a kind of ongoing effort to merge life and practice. So life is practice and practice is life. And this is an area where people struggle a lot. Like, how do you find the effort to initiate? So I wanted to talk about some of the three things that the Buddha pointed to that support initiating effort. So the first thing is faith. And it's a challenging word. Confidence, trust. Um, and it's I think it was Martin Luther King Jr. who said that faith is like the taking the first step in a darkened stairway, even though you don't know where the stairway leads. And I think it's like that for many of us. We have an intuition, meditation would be a good thing, so we explore it. And then as we explore it, we begin to see some benefit, and then that feeds into more. There's a kind of delight, actually, that when you begin to see some fruit of the practice. Um, the Buddha had these existential questions, and many of us come to practice with the same kinds of question. Maybe not exactly the same, but these sort of like big life questions. And if you're trying to solve the conundrum of life, let's say, and then you see, even though maybe you don't fully understand it all, you see like, oh, here's something that might be the solution to that, or move me in a direction of solving those major life conundrums, there's a kind of delight that arises. And that's important to notice that delight because that's something you can remember when there's resistance or I don't want to do it today, or I'd rather just stay in bed, or whatever the things are that keep us from initiating effort. So reflecting on the fruits of practice as you've already experienced them in moments of resistance. Um, Borrowing the faith of people that we know and trust, who have confidence in practice, maybe are manifesting the qualities of heart that we associate with practice in daily life. The word we translate as mindfulness. Uh, the word is sati, and it means actually to hold in mind or to recollect. So it's an important word for the practice of what we think of as mindfulness, like being aware, but also a through line to practice is that we just have to remember to do these things, to hold in mind and remember. Another thing that has really helped me a lot in initiating effort is the Buddha described it as remembering the preciousness of human life. And they use these analogies. It's like the probability of being born into human birth, according to this cosmology, something like every 100 years, a blind turtle surfaces on the great ocean. And at the same time, someone throws a little, a yolk, a life preserver into the water. What's the probability that the blind turtle would raise its head in the middle of the yolk? That's the probability of a human birth. And the human birth is seen as the most auspicious for the prospect of awakening. Because in Buddhist cosmology, there are these other realms. There's these sort of heaven realms where, if there's a body, it's very ethereal, and so we don't have you don't have any problems with the physicality of the body. Some of these realms, if there's a desire, it just is instantly fulfilled. Uh, so there's no like problem to be solved. There's no incentive to awaken really or escape from, you know, what we experience as samsara in this realm is difficult, and that difficulty can be a catalyst for awakening. And in the cosmology, there's these sort of lower realms of animal realms where it's just there's not enough brightness of mind, it's just all instinct. Or my favorite hell realm to think about is the hungry ghost realm. And so this is like depicted by these beings who have like, big bodies and big bellies, but super tiny mouths and throats. So there's this like endless hunger and can never get satisfied because there's just not a mechanism to satisfy it. So very difficult to awaken in that kind of a realm because just trying to feed ourselves all the time. And whether you take these realms literally, we certainly can see the metaphor. I'm sure we've all experienced that hungry ghost feeling of can't get enough of whatever the thing is. There's a chant that I've done. I think I did it almost every day for about a decade. It's called the Five Subjects for Frequent Recollection. And any of you know this chant? Oh, okay. Um, maybe we'll just chant it and see how that feels. I'll do a line and then you can chant back after me. And just something about chanting is just not, don't get hung up on performance or tone or pitch or how it sounds. This is really just like a way of practicing with sound. So, so the first line is, I am of the nature to age. I have not gone beyond aging. Let's do that together. I am of the nature to age. I have not gone beyond aging. I am of the nature to sicken. I have not gone beyond sickness. I am of the nature to sicken. I have not gone beyond sickness. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond dying. Nature to die. I have not gone beyond dying. All that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. All that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. This is where, that's the first four, and it, to many people, it just sounds very bleak because we live in a culture that's sort of fond of putting inconvenient truths to the side. We don't like to focus on them. Um, but this is the realm that we're dealt with. So, Buddhist practice invites being clear-eyed about what we're up against. And then it pivots. So the fifth one, um, is the whole point of the enterprise. So the fifth one, um, I am the owner of my karma, uh, my karma, heir to my karma, born of my karma, related to my karma, abide supported by my karma. Whatever karma I shall do, for good or for ill, whatever karma I shall do, for good or for ill, of that I will be the heir. That I will be the heir. So karma is the Pali is the language that the Buddha's teachings were written down in. The Kama is the Pali word for karma. And it's the whole endeavor of practice is built around this principle that the all our actions, karma actually means action, and all our actions of body, speech, and mind uh, matter. They have results. We practice, we spend time practicing, steadying the mind, something like the breath. We practice cultivating beautiful qualities of being, like kindness, compassion, that this influences how we experience the world. And, the recollection of the preciousness of life and the inevitability of death, actually, um, it brings joy if you keep doing it. I found this to be very sort of bleak and depressing. I sort of interpreting this as life sucks and then you die. And at the encouragement of a teacher, I started doing this chant, and something shifted in my relationship to life, actually. I kind of like seize the moment kind of energy because we never know how many moments we have. And there is an app now that I have installed on my phone. The app is called We Croak. And 5 times a day, you get a notification. They come on my watch, and it just says, "Don't forget, you're gonna die." And then there's a inspirational quote about life or death. And I find this to be incredibly helpful. Like in moments where I'm irritated at something or struggling with something or um, whatever drama is going on in that moment, having the reminder, don't forget you're going to die, it just like softens everything. It puts things in perspective. I don't know, probably not. He said he asked if it only worked if you had a pulse. Yeah. So this chant we did, five subjects for frequent recollection. If you go to YouTube, there's a beautiful version of this that you can listen to or chant along with. It has the words on it. Um, Interesting practice to try. Uh, and then the third thing that helps initiate effort. So faith, trust, confidence, remembering the fruits of practice, remembering the fleetingness of life. And the third one is Kalyana Mita, the spiritual friends. And I love this phrase, Kalyana Mita, because it's actually a play on words. The famous story of Ananda, the people call him the Buddha's attendant. I think of him more as like the chief of staff, because he was the person who decided whether you got an audience with the Buddha. He was the person who memorized all the teachings, very important figure in the Buddhist world. Ananda once famously said to the Buddha, they traveled. They spent 9 months of the year traveling to different places and teaching in different communities. And they went somewhere and they had a particularly good, receptive community. Uh, and Ananda said that spiritual practice, half of the spiritual practice, half of the holy life is spiritual friendship. And the Buddha said, don't say that, Ananda. Kalyanamita is all of the path. And Kalyana means beautiful. Mita means friend. So Kalyanamita means either beautiful friends, like friends on the path, spiritual friends, or it means befriending the beautiful. And when you think about it in those two ways, it really is the whole path. Like we have our spiritual friends, people that, if you're a deluded type, it's very difficult to see that in yourself. Somebody was saying that it's not hard to admit you're wrong, but it's very hard to be wrong and continue to be wrong and notice that you're wrong. And this is where Kalyamita is so important because people can see, the way you speak and the way you are. If there's misunderstandings or misperceptions that can be corrected, so valuable. Um, and, I became very committed to practice just because of this place. Like, there were times where I was here 4 days a week because there were just different events going on. We had a Thursday morning group that was very vibrant, kind of like more mature practitioners. We had the Sunday group. We had uh, a Tuesday night group and a Wednesday night group, and it just became my anchor. Um, just to be around good-hearted people, to be around, you know, a certain kind of positivity or the path is inherently optimistic because there's an idea that yeah, we have these struggles and difficulties, but there's something that we can actually do. Um, my whole sort of teaching arc came out of a desire to have a community to practice in. I had gone on a retreat at Spirit Rock and I felt the ineffable thing that happens when you practice together as a way in which we create a field and we carry each other. Even today, like the silence that you all brought was so palpable. I felt like I was being held in this beautiful field. So I had this desire that I wanted to practice with people, and you know, this was like 2007, 2008, um, and I had this ongoing thing of like, how can I find a community? I went to different communities and did didn't feel the vibe. I tell people finding a song is a little bit like dating. You have to like try out different options. There has to be a certain sort of chemistry for you to feel like it's worth your time and effort. And then my wife said, "Well, why don't we start a group?" And so we started a group in my living room. So it was actually, and um, I sort of didn't fully grok the part that I was going to be leading it. which brought on new challenges and new like enthusiasm to actually get some training in how to teach. And so I feel like my whole practice, now my whole livelihood is all based on this concept of spiritual friends. Much so hard to walk this path um, without companions in practice. So I'm going to stop talking, and I would love to hear any comments or reflections, either about energy, effort, or really anything practice related.